Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, folks. Michael Zuber, one rental at a time. It is my pleasure to bring to you a platform that I am using today in my business. If people have been following me for any length of time, you know that I'm working with Velocity Mortgage on something we call the 50-40-10. 50% first, 40% second, 10% down. I am trying to buy residential properties 1 through 4s using seller financing. In order to do that, I need to have a platform that helps me identify high equity positions. And this is how I'm using PropStream. On top of that, you heard 2 weeks ago, we had Ty, it might have been 3 weeks ago, talk about creative financing, pre-foreclosures, things of that nature. Again, PropStream was brought up as the platform. So again, folks, what you will see throughout this is PropStream is a data lake. It basically has done its job of going out and collecting information about real estate and owners across lots of platforms, which we will talk about. And then it provides a GUI or a user interface for you, the operator, to ask it questions. In order to get started, let's bring on the man, myth, the legend, Burton himself. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing very well. How about you today?
So I gave my shot of kind of summarizing at a 10,000, maybe 20,000 foot level of what PropStream is. It's a data lake. It's a repository. Then you have a GUI on top of it to ask it questions. What'd you think? How'd I do?
I think you nailed it right on the head. Hopefully, I'll be able to enlighten them a little bit more or shed more light on what our application can do as well.
So why don't you introduce the audience to who you are? You've been on my channel a bunch, but let's assume they don't know who you are. And who is Burton? Who is PropStream? Let's go from there.
Yeah, let's start with PropStream. So PropStream started in 2006, and the objective was to go ahead and collect data on your behalf. We realized a lot of investors, agents, pretty much anybody in the real estate space at the time were spending anywhere between a day to 2 or 3 business days just sourcing records. This meant going to the county, grabbing those high equity records, grabbing those pre-foreclosure records, then bringing them back to the office and then manually sorting them out, right? Commercial in one pile, residential in the other pile, and then, maybe separating by ownership, separating by years of it. You had to do all of this manually. And that's where we saw the opportunity. PropStream sourced the same data, plus other harder third-party data like MLS data on your behalf, mortgage data on your behalf, liens, bankruptcies, divorces. We took all that data that was pretty much scattered and compiled it into our system. So you don't have to go to 5 different websites, 6 different websites, 7 different websites and stuff like that. Now, where do I come in? About a decade ago, I started with PropStream. In 2013, I saw an opportunity to join the team. I took it. I started as a tech support agent, installing the application, making sure it worked. But I'm a very curious individual. I took real estate courses. I started reading real estate books. I started asking our users questions about what they're doing with our data. And once I started absorbing all the different strategies that people are using with our data, here I am today. So I'm just really a tour guide. I'm going to be able to help you guys understand how agents, investors, again, anybody in the real estate space like yourself is utilizing PropStream to the highest degree.
Yeah. And then just so everybody knows, I put in the comments section a trial that PropStream gave me over a year ago. They gave us this. So it's just for the ORaaT family. There's the link there. I still believe it's a 7-day trial. What is 7-day trial? 50 records for free and a small discount if they decide to sign up, something like that. Burton, do you recall?
That's correct. Yeah, 7-day trial. In that 7-day trial, you'll be able to do what I'm about to show you guys today. You'll get 50 leads to play with. If you decide to subscribe, instead of $99 a month, you'll be getting that for $97 a month. And then we give you 10,000 records every month. So make sure you guys click on the link.
Nice. All right. So let's just, because a lot of people are used to technology using their phones to phone apps, and they don't really appreciate what it was like just 15 years ago, right? You talked about going to county records. I mean, just talk about some of the data sources, right? There's obviously people go to title companies and you have your title rep generate a list and all of those things, but it's so much more than that. There's so many other data sources you're now collecting. Talk about a few of them.
Yeah, so if you go to our main website, and I'll link it in just a few moments, but just some of the data sets that we currently have right now are your traditional data sets that we know people are trying to look for, right? So you got your pre-foreclosures, you got your auction records, your foreclosure records. Then we have like your a little bit more harder to obtain records. We're referring to MLS, vacant properties, like properties not answering their mail. tired landlords, non-owner occupied, 15 years of ownership. We have pre-probate. We're the first in the nation to show you a deceased owner with their name still on a property. We have failed listings from the MLS. We have MLS active listings. So you can look for a property that might be active for 90 days or more now. Bankruptcies, divorces, high equity, free and clear, tax delinquencies, cash buyers, flippers. These are just some of the one I'm sure I'm missing one or two more, but
Yeah.
hopefully you guys get the idea.
Yeah. So if you're like me, right? So first and foremost, let's be clear, right? I have an unfair advantage because I sold big data software for the last decade of my career, right? I worked at a company called Splunk, right, which basically was a GUI on top of a data lake, simply said, right? So I get PropStream probably better than most, but I want everybody watching this. You all have a buy box, right? If you're one of my students, you have a buy box. And actually, one of the things we'll ask Burton to do when he goes in is we'll just put in my old buy box, because again, it's amazing what you can find in the application. It's the ability to source a dozen systems where the unique identifier is an APN or an address or something is almost hard to imagine, difficult. Duplicate records, the data's not clean, the formatting, it's all different. It's very, 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 very hard to do. Burton is underselling the complexities. Good news is we don't have to do any of it. What you, the viewer watching this, you, one of my students or followers on YouTube, you have to ask it questions. The results are the results. But your question, there are better questions. And we're going to get into this and show you how the GUI allows you to be intellectually curious about what is going on in the data. Does that make sense, Burton?
Definitely.
All right. So I've given you control. Why don't you pull up the application and we'll just do a little bit of song and dance, and then we will open it up for questions.
Absolutely. And I know we got a lot of questions about data on our end. So I like to just start off by showing you guys just kind of what's sitting under the hood right now.
Perfect.
We're more than residential. I do want to emphasize, we'd have commercial, industrial, vacant land, exempt properties. And just as Michael was mentioning, data didn't just come from one source. These bubbles are just indications of the different vendors that we work with to capture this data. Like we work with vendors that collect tax assessor data, deeds, open mortgages, on market, failed listings, sold listings, and then a little bit harder documents to obtain, like actual images of the documents and HOA data and bankruptcy data. Someone mentioned mortgage data not being available. I see in the chat, and a property I looked up to. And that could be many things. I mean, feel free to call, give us the address, or customer support can take a deeper dive in there. But depending on the market, some vendors may not have that information. Another thing could be poor penmanship. A lot of these records are sometimes written out in pen, and we can't connect it to the right property. So what you want to do is anytime you see a discrepancy, please just call in with that address. Let us take a look into it, and our team will let us know whether we weren't able to obtain that mortgage or we did find it. It's just not connected properly, and we'll provide you an ETA. There's a lot of different elements as to why something could be missing. So that's a really good question, by the way.
Yeah, I think.
All right, so
yeah, let's just kind of hit that again. A data lake is as good as the data sources, right? And there's a lot of impressive sources here, but we all are going to be looking at our own things in our own areas, and sometimes it won't be there. And let's be clear, sometimes it'll be wrong, right? It happens. There's
all the time. Yeah, you see it. You see it frequently with like pre-foreclosures and bankruptcies. We'll get users that call in and say, "Hey, I just pulled this pre-foreclosure list, and the balance says 100,000, but when I spoke to the homeowner, they told me the balance was 120,000."
Right.
Well, that's true because they're in pre-foreclosure. They're not making payments.
Yeah.
Our algorithms don't know that. We don't know that the homeowner is making extra payments or not making payments. Mm-hmm. And so this is why we label things estimated value or estimated mortgage balance. It's because there's always that external value or anomaly that we're not able to account for.
Yeah. What I would tell you when you go into this is it's first off, you're going to see access to information that you could not pay for. You an individual could not do what you're about to see. Also, it's not going to be perfect, but it's at least a sign in the right direction. And when you hear about investors, like if people watch Jason Pritchard, he's on my Sunday Expert every other week Sunday. He talks about list stacking, right? He'll do one set of lists and then another set. And he'll look for people that are on the same list or opportunities on the same list. So again, it's not going to be perfect. It's going to be a hell of a lot better than you could do manually. It's going to give you visual into your buy box like you haven't had.
Yeah, nailed it right on the head. It's the visual aspect that people tend to forget because records don't look like what they're going to look like in a few moments. So that's the data that we collect. The next question I get all the time is, so what do you do with that data? We're simply just addressing what you're doing, right? As a real estate professional, whether you're using our platform or the next or doing it manually, the two principles of your business are lead generation and analyzing a property, right? Again, whether you're using us or not, you got to do this. Lead generation, again, in the past looked like this. Go to the county, grab records, start knocking on doors. People start answering the door or answering the phone call. You start asking questions and analyzing that property manually, right? Today, it's different. Today, you can go in PropStream, you can search your market, build a list by manipulating our data. You can then leave and get those addresses, or you can do part two, skip trace them, get a phone number and get a landline, get an email, and then export that. Or you can even do part three, marketing. So you literally can build a list, skip trace and market within like 15 minutes. In the past, again, 1 to 3 days just to source the records. Then you have the courage and gas money to go knock on doors. And then 3, what happens when you actually speak to someone, right? Every conversation in the past before technology was going in there blindly. No one was doing 100% research on properties. Yeah, you didn't research a property, then call the homeowner right after, right? You grabbed a list, called the homeowner, and then when they were on the phone, we started asking questions about beds, bathrooms. Do you have a mortgage? What other things do I need to know about your situation, right? That information is gathered for you. So you'll be able to search the address, find opportunities within the data that we provided, right? Not only is it vacant, but maybe because they have 2 mortgages. That's probably another reason why they called you, right? They want to get rid of those 2 notes because it's not cash flowing as well. So Michael talked about list stacking, right? Vacant, 2 mortgages. That's a sense of list stacking right there. And you can see that stuff in the data. Then you're going to be able to run comps, right? Because once you understand what the motivation and what the time frame is going to be to sell the property, you're going to need to potentially make an offer. And based on all the questions you asked previously, you'll know whether the property is at a 50%, 60%, or 70% offer, right? And then you can print that report out because most homeowners are going to need to think about it. Your buyers might want to see your homework. You can print the comp report to show the homeowner and educate them and justify why you're offering 70%, 80%, whatever it may be. And then you can also sue the same report to your buyers to encourage that contract to move. So this is what we do. Additional features like the mobile app, list automator, lots of cool stuff, which we just don't have the time for. But the 2 main things that we do are lead generation and analyzing a property. And so when you go into PropStream, this is what you're going to see. First pop-up is just, hey, here's all of our software updates. Like we got new data back. We do live webinars daily, Monday through Friday, and some of our add-on features we wanted you to know about. But when you hit close, your playground is in the United States, right? This is the first thing that people don't realize is that you couldn't even leave your market back in the day. Back in the day, you were stuck in your market. So if the homeowner said, hey, I see you marketed to my house in Orange County, California, where I'm at, but my mom's house is what I'm referring to. And my mom's house is in Kansas, Wichita. I would have to say in the past, sorry, I cannot help you. You're better off having your mom call an expert in Wichita. Today, I can zoom into Wichita and pull up a property or a commercial building by clicking on it. And after I click on that property, I have a brief description of that property. I can go into the details. So this is the bread and butter of PropStream right here. This is analyzing a property. So I click on a property, or we actually recommend that you search them in the search bar. If you do that, we actually give you more information. Instead of giving you this little box that we saw a few moments ago, we move this box to the right side so we can show you the local listings like, hey, there's 9,500 recorded cash buyers in this market, or there's a lot of liens happening in this market. You'll be able to see the neighbors down below, which are reflected on the map, MLS listings, pre-foreclosures, foreclosures. So imagine in the past, before technology, someone called you and gave you their address. You didn't know anything about this. right? You didn't know whether this was a market where there were cash buyers. You didn't know if this was a market that was positively trending, which you can see down here. We can see whether price changes have trended positively or negatively, rent changes. We could see price per square footage trends, even days on market, like a 3-bedroom property in Wichita right now, based on our MLS data, they're moving in about 77 days, right? So if I were to buy this property and fix and flip it from a different state, I know after we've renovated, it's probably going to sell in about 2 to 3 months, right? And that's essentially data doing that for me. So now I'm talking to the homeowner with all this data and confidence. And here's another thing. We're using Google Maps. People fail to realize. And we have Google Map tools so you can zoom in. You can even drop the Google individual onto the street, look at the property, compliment them about their house. Maybe you might see a nice car, compliment the car, talk about the neighbors not cutting their grass. That might be a reason they're wanting to move because the neighbors are crazy and they don't do anything. Like these are things that we're equipping you with that you didn't have in the past so that you have an edge or a different angle than most. Now, here's the reality. This should all be done within like the first 1 to 2, 3 minutes of your conversation. Hi, this is Burton. Thanks for calling me. Oh, cool. That you got my postcard. What's your address? I'm going to look at their address, look at the environment. But if the conversation actually carries on, this is where we encourage our users to actually go in the details of our properties. In the details of the property, this is where we take all those records, those little bubbles I was showing you earlier, and put it on one page. Remember, in the past, you didn't have this. And just a few years ago, you had to go to 7 websites for this. Today, not anymore. Today, right away, I have the address at the top, satellite image, which if this house was actually on the market, like these 535 MLS properties I'm about to click on, you would actually have photos you could view as well, right? So depending on the situation, there might be photos because it's on market or just was on market, or like the address we just searched and randomly clicked on, Riva Street, this property hasn't been on market, right? This property has been owned for 7 years. So there's no MLS photos because they're not trying to list it. Well, not yet, at least, right? That's your goal, to get a hold of them. So today, things are different. You have the address, you have satellite image, you have the beds and bathrooms, year built. So instead of asking, oh, hey, how old is your property today? Hey, James, Paula, I see your property is about 70 years old. When's the last time you guys did the roof? Should have been done twice already. Oh, you haven't done the second time. Okay, let me write that down because that's going to now impact your offer down the road, right? Data equips you to ask better questions instead of using that time or that question to ask them about the year built, because then they might get pissed off. Dude, you're the 15th person that asked that. I'm tired of it. Click, right? Yeah. Now you have that information ahead of time. Property summary. All of this information in this first box comes from our property details. And this alone is important right here. Right? Let's say James calls you. Hey, James, thanks for calling me. I see you want to sell your house. I know right off the bat, Paul is a second owner in the property because the data's telling me. So the last thing I'm going to do is try to make a deal with James. And the next morning, James goes, hey, my wife, Paula, didn't agree to the price. Right off the bat, I can say, hey, James, before I make an offer, can we bring Paula on the line first? Right? And that's because I have that data. Property characteristics, building, land location information. We're then going to give you tax and financial information and the mortgage. They have a VA loan. I can thank James for serving. This is data for you, right? We would have never known he served, but the loan type tells me he did. So, hey, James, thanks for serving. Oh, how did you know? Oh, yeah, I see you have a VA loan. Oh, awesome. How's US Bank treating you, man? They're not treating me really well. They keep ignoring my calls. My interest rates just went up. Oh, sorry to hear that, right? So now we know the motivation. It's not just, oh, he owns the property 7 years and wants to move out. It's doesn't like the bank, doesn't like the interest rates. Comparables is the final stop. And this is all analyzing a property, right? This is the hard part. We simply just mimic what you were doing in the past, grabbing a list, and then when they would call, what is it that you need? You needed property information, situational data and financial information, and comparables. Now, situational data does look like this as well. If I click on a pre-foreclosure and you go to that pre-foreclosure, you'll see a pre-foreclosure tab. This is what we call situational data. James and Paula, they weren't going through a pre-foreclosure, hence no pre-foreclosure tab, right? So in the property details, this was the first hard part PropStream had to do. Property data, mortgage data, situational data, and the ability to comp all within searching the address. But that's not the whole point today, right? The whole point was to show you what we do. This is one aspect. So if you have a property right now and you want to analyze it, we got you covered. But what we also excel at is that other part, lead generation. So the reason I showed you all of our property details is because you can search any market in the United States by city, county, zip, or even use the draw search feature. And Michael, I know you said you had a buy box. What's the city or zip code you'd like me to search?
Yeah, so let's just we'll do a couple of them together. So we're going to go back to 2002 and give you my original buy box. So 93703.
All right.
So that would be the zip code. And then property characteristics, we're going to want 3 bedrooms or above.
3, so property characteristics. So I'm going to our search filter, and our property characteristics are right here.
Mm-hmm.
And what we're looking for are bedrooms, so 3 or above.
Building size between 1,200 square feet and 1,750. And we were only doing homes, no units, no condos.
So single family properties.
Exactly.
That would be under our property type.
Yep. And that was what I used for 5 years.
Perfect. So by doing that, I can now hit close. And what we just did is source 2,300 properties that meet that specific criteria.
Yeah. And this was one of my first aha moments, because I think you and I did this in our first call a year ago. So if people know my story, right? What was my buy box? Again, it was 93703. We just did it. But I was looking in the MLS, right? So MLS listings here is 39. You see that there on the left?
Very limited, yeah.
That's all I was looking at. And again, for me, my buy box was supposed to be between 20 and 40 active listings. I never been to Fresno, never lived there, didn't know it, blah, blah, blah. That's all I had. I would have loved to have more, to know how big it was. I never looked at this until you and I did this a year ago. I did not even realize my total size was 2,314, right? In that zip code. I had no idea. I was looking at 39. Right. It's unfat. And it's funny. There's 15 in pre-foreclosure. I had no idea. All I was looking at was active MLS. I didn't know there were 5 bank owned. So what I was acting on in 2002 might as well have been an abacus instead of an HP calculator. Right? It's funny. It's funny for me to acknowledge how far behind I was.
And this is the thing I tell people, like, you guys that are watching this and you guys that are going to be utilizing this system, you're really in this really cool transition. There are actually 2 ways that you can pull lists. And this is one of the ways. This is actually the newer way of pulling a list, but let me show you the 2 ways of pulling a list. This is Fresno, right? So let me search Fresno really quick, and I'll show you the 2 ways that people are using PropStream to build a list. The first way is after they pull a market like Fresno with 166,000 records. Now, they're not going to go through them manually. No one's going to do that. So what they'll do actually is go in our filter. And the first way to pull the list is by using one of our 18 quick list choices. This is what I call the traditional search. And I actually wrote this out on a PowerPoint for you guys. But the 2 searches, the first one's called the traditional search. And what this is just simply picking a list, which is step 1, and then following these 3 core elements, right? Which is make sure it's off market unless you want it listed. Apply your equity. So if you're wholesaling or you're fixing and flipping, or you're going to be an agent that doesn't want to tell the homeowner to put money on the table, right? Most strategies require equity, some form of positive equity, unless you're doing short sales or something like that. And then for your property and owner characteristics, right? Michael gave us a few examples. So this would look like this. If I was in Fresno, the traditional search would be going to Fresno, then the search filter, then choosing a list like, hey, you know what? I want to go after the people that didn't make their tax payments on time. Right. And so boom, I got our tax delinquencies. But I mean, 12,000 is still a lot. And that's where these other 2, 3, 4 rules come into play. After you pick a list, the additional filters here would be MLS status. Let's make sure it's off market. So you don't pay 5 to 15% over asking price right now, which is happening. We want equity. So after MLS, I go to equity and I say I want 35% in equity. And then the last thing would be your property characteristics and your ownership info. So just like Michael, we can do single family, 3 to 5 bedrooms, the 1,200 to 1,750. And then again, you're about to market to this list. So who do you want calling you back? And that's why I do the ownership info. The people I want calling me back are people that own the property for 7 years and are an individual. And so this is the traditional search where you start with the list in the quick list choices, you use our additional filters, and after doing that, you're going to be able to hit close. Instead of 118,000 properties, you have a highly targeted list now of 935, right? But this is the traditional search. The new search, and Michael was doing this right now in front of you guys, and that was a huge gem. It's what I call building situations. And a lot of people forget that we don't just sell you a list, we sell you data. You can do anything with our data. We have 150 filters. Yeah, as a matter of fact, you don't even have to choose a list, right? So building situation looks like this. Just make sure it's off market, make sure it's equity, your property and owner characteristics. I stole that from the traditional search. I just made them first, right? Mm-hmm. The last part is build your situation. So like if I was if I was listening to the news recently, interest rates gone up. That's an issue for some of these homeowners, not everybody, but some of them. So here's building that situation. I first want it off market. I first want it with equity, let's say 40% in equity. And the type of property owner I want are residential single family properties owned for 10 years. And you'll see why the importance of this. I'm looking for someone who got used to 10 years of payment. Does that make sense? And then they got news about interest rates going up. But again, there's 3,500 of them, right? I'm not looking for 35,000 of them, I'm sorry. The one I'm looking for has a specific mortgage. So in the mortgage information, I'm looking for ones that have one, maybe two open mortgages, but they have an adjustable rate mortgage. So I'm not going after a list because in my philosophy, a lead on a list is already late, right? So while you're waiting to get pre-foreclosures and liens and bankruptcies, I'm going after the starting point. I'm going after the homeowners who would most likely show up on a list due to an increase update. I'm going after the adjustable rate mortgages. Right? This is what I call building situations. I've been teaching this for the last few years, and it's barely starting to dawn upon people. You don't always have to choose a list. I have, again, a philosophy is a lead is not a list. A lead is a situation, and you can do that with PropStream. Here's another one. Realtors. Anybody here that's a realtor, even a fix and flipper, this would be great for you. I saw someone look for 10 years of ownership, occupied properties. Imagine they're actually living in this house for 10 years or more. But here's the motivation. 3 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, 1 bathroom. And you could even say it needs to be minimum 1,200 because if I do acquire this 1 bathroom property with 1,200 square footage, I'm going to put a second bathroom in it. But that's the motivation. It's not that, oh, hey, you're on a pre-foreclosure list. Oh, hey, you're on a lease. No, you've been sharing 1 bathroom for 10 years. These are the same homeowners that walk into a realtor's office and say, we need to upgrade. They're not going to be on a pre-foreclosure list. They're not going to be on a bankruptcy list. They're not going to be on a lien list because they have money. They're ready to buy, but I can get to them before they get to the realtor's office. Does that make sense? And that's building situations. And so I saw a question here that made it's a really great question. I get this all the time. How often is data updated? I find pre-foreclosures is mostly outdated. Well, the reason why you see pre-foreclosures with past dates, and this is a question I get all the time. Burton, I see your recording date was in June. It's already August. Why is it still here? I'll give you the answer. The reason we keep it still here is because if a property has been auctioned off, what happens, right? Either someone else bought it, let's say you bought it, would go under your name, or no one bought it and would go under the lender's name, or the homeowner paid out of that pre-foreclosure and it became a notice of rescission. We don't see any of that, right? So although this property was recorded as a pre-foreclosure in June, and it has a past recording date, and even might have an auction date that happened, we don't see a new title. We don't see a notice of rescission. A rescission is one of these. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that. Not every county provides it, but a notice of rescission is a document. It's called a default release. And that's it right here. 61 properties got out of pre-foreclosure. And you'll see what's called an NOD, a notice of rescission, right? So that notice of default, no longer in a notice of default, right? So PropStream, we don't just say, oh, the date passed, get rid of it, because that's not the reality of how properties work, right? A property can go up for auction today, but they took too long for the first 5 properties. And so they never got to that property. Or like during the pandemic, properties that were supposed to be auctioned off in March 2020, they didn't get auctioned until March 2021. And so a whole year elapsed before that happened. So what PropStream does is we have these set logics in the back part. Hey, if the date passes, keep it there. Let's wait for a new title with a new name, or let's wait for the lender's name, or let's wait for that notice of rescission that says they're not in pre-foreclosure anymore. So that's a really good question. But the first part was the frequency of data. There's 2 types of data updates that we have. We update every day. Again, we collect data on a nationwide level. And so reality is we update every day because we update today for LA, we update tomorrow for Illinois, we update Montana every day. So when I see this question, what the question is really saying is, how frequently is my market updating? Right? That's the reality of it. So let me show you. I could say every day and get away with it in the court of law because the reality is we do, but that's not the question. The question is, how frequently is my market? Right? So if I was searching Fresno and I want to know, well, how frequently is PropStream updating Fresno? There's this little button right here I call the spreadsheet view. If you click on that arrow, shows you a spreadsheet view, and there's a column that says last updated. If you click on that twice, we'll put the most recent record updated. So the last update that happened in this market was on the 13th, which is 7 days ago. Now, the reason why I'm showing you this is because no two records come from the same provider. So if I was now wondering, okay, well, when's the last time you updated the MLS data in Fresno? I click on the MLS, I click on spreadsheet view, I use that last updated, and it's going to tell me the last updated record for the MLS was on the 13th. Okay, well, what about the liens? Liens don't come from the MLS, they come from the county. When's the last time you updated the liens? Rinse, recycle, repeat. Click on liens, click on the last updated, and what you're going to discover is no two records update on the same time, right? The liens, which comes from the county, was last updated 19 days ago, whereas the MLS, which comes a little bit faster than most records, was updated 7 days ago in this market. But what happens in Fresno does not happen in Greer, South Carolina, right? If I go to South Carolina, I say, hey, when's the last time you guys updated your liens in South Carolina? You'll notice that they're actually a little bit sooner. They actually updated on the 4th rather than the 1st, and Fresno is a major city, right? So updates happen every day on our end, but your city, your market has its own frequency. And the best way to look at that is by using this view right here called the spreadsheet view. Remember, guys, we're more than just providing you a list. You can build situations. So you should be looking for adjustable rates mortgage right now. You should be looking for seniors with adjustable rate mortgages, vacant properties with adjustable rate mortgages. Like that should be one of your top 10 searches right now. And I just wanted to emphasize that because there's a lot of people that are going to need your help in that category right now. And Michael, I'm going to go ahead and give it back to you, but hopefully that should shed some more light on what we do.
Let's do one more search just to kind of keep people on. We're going to get to your chat in a minute. So Bert, can you bring it up one more time, please?
Yes, let's go ahead and do that. Here we go.
So we did my first buy box search. To round it out, let's kind of show them what I'm doing today. So we're going to look at Madera, California.
Madera.
Then we're going to look at 2 through 4s.
Right. So property characteristics, 2 bedrooms, 4 bedrooms.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, duplex through quad. Sorry, my mistake.
Oh, okay. Duplex to quad. So what we can do here is we can do 2 ways, guys. We can manually look for multifamily 2 to 4.
Yep.
Because no counties are all the same, I personally play it safe. I also click on residential and I check off everything. So duplex, quadruplexes, triplexes.
There you go.
So now that I have everything possibly checked off, here we go.
So obviously non-owner occupied because it's
right. So owner occupied, no.
And then finally, equity 50% or higher.
Valuation, equity info, estimated equity 50% or more.
And length of ownership, 10 years or more.
There we go. So 10 years minimum or more. And here is our 189 properties.
Yeah. So that is essentially the criteria that my team is using for the 50-40-10. Remember, the 50-40-10 is a lending program with Velocity where combined loan to value allows me to have the seller take back some of the second or some of the loan as a second. So you have to find owners with equity. And these are the people that are getting postcards I'm mailing out. So again, it really is, the lake is there. It's all about your question, what Burton was calling situations. And there's really more power in this platform than even I have touched. You know, looking at ARMs, for example, as Burton talked about, never even thought about. I'm sure there's dozens of searches and queries and questions that you could ask your data set in your buy box that I have not even thought of. So Burton, thank you very much. Kind of round it out and I'll bring up the questions.
Absolutely. So thank you guys so very much for giving me your time. I mean, at the end of the day, if there's anything that you absorbed from me today, it's really just understanding that you are the pioneer of how things are being done today. In the past, things were done more of that traditional way. Start with the list, refine that list, and you should still be doing that. I mean, as a matter of fact, you should be like, that should be just enhanced and honed in by now, right? But understand that there's more to it than just grabbing a list. Again, data tells a story, and just like today, you could manipulate it to potentially find someone whose story is about to get shaken up a little bit, right? Potentially save them from that. Like the 3 bedrooms, 1 bathrooms, the adjustable rate mortgages, senior citizens in 2-story buildings. I mean, the list goes on. So many situations out there that aren't always on a list. So I just want to thank you guys so much for that.
So let's get to the questions. A lot of these I think you've already tackled, but we're going to go through them. So Kenny was asking, hey, I've just started trying it out. Noticed that mortgage debt summary of multifamily properties when looking at property details showing 0. Again, is that just the data that we have doesn't show it?
Good question. So again, lots of variables. So it's either it's going to be one of many things. So the first one is demographics. Like, where are you at? Like, sometimes certain areas don't provide that data. Mm-hmm. So like LA County, they'll publish that information so everyone can get access to it. So providers can provide that information readily. There are some areas that they don't record that information, or it's just not logistically feasible. Like, it costs more money to acquire that information than to provide that information. So it's not feasible. And third, not every provider collects data for like commercial, like, so we do have mortgage data, but it might be just for single family or duplexes, but not for apartments or not for mobile homes. But that's hit or miss, right? Some markets will give us that, some markets won't. So Kenny, I think we mentioned this earlier. If you just have a question about a specific property, if you feel like, hey, it's supposed to have something, but I don't see it, or the bedrooms are supposed to say 4 instead of 3, you have to let us know so we can actually ping our providers. Because again, we don't manipulate the data, we just get it as it's recorded. And so if you let us know, we can then audit them and say, this data is wrong, fix it, and then we can provide you an ETA and what that turnaround is. So that's a good question.
Got a question about how we got a couple of these often updated. You've shown us how to answer that question. So again, you're updating every day, but really what people want to know is how often is their stuff updated? You showed them how to answer that. It's usually days or weeks, it appeared. So that's cool.
Correct. And some are even obvious, like high equity data once a month. Why? Because people make a mortgage payment once a month. So you shouldn't be logging in trying to pull a high equity list every day, because that's just not going to work in most markets. Pre-probate, right? Our deceased owners, we don't know when someone dies. We don't time someone's death. Once that occurs and our logic connects the dots, it populates into our system. I will say that the fastest record of all of the records that we have is definitely MLS, where the turnaround in most markets are 24 to 72 hours.
Yeah, it makes sense. Does PropStream gather all lien information? So we've seen mortgage liens. Would you see like a contractor lien or something else?
That's a great question. I guess I could show you what liens we have. So in our filter, these are the lien options that are available for you. We have tax liens, HOA liens, mechanical liens, utility liens, solar lien, like someone renting equipment out, child support lien, and other. Other would be an abstract of judgment, like a creditor suing the owner, or I saw one where a wedding planner was suing the owner for like $7,000.
Oh, wow.
That would fall under other, like more of the civil cases. But these are the different options you want. So if I wanted to go to Madeira and see all the child support liens, here we go, 393 of them. Just apply your equity off market. Again, the same foundations as most searches are going to be performed.
Sucks. I mean,
boys anyway. He's all like,
I know it sucks. We could try our Walmart. I just don't
let's
know. Well, you never know if you don't try. But, I don't know. Here, Errol.
That was weird. All right, Burton, I have to ask you to unmute again. There we go.
Right.
So, sorry about that. I don't know who that was. I can't yell at them, but that's okay. So let's see. Let's go back to where we were. All right. Let's see. All liens. Next, does PropStream allow more than one user for one account? Say husband and wife. How does PropStream?
Well, I mean, personally, if it was me, as long as you guys aren't logging in simultaneously,
it's one,
you could use the same username and password. But if you have to log in simultaneously, like let's say I'm going to pull the leads, she's analyzing properties.
Yeah, you need to.
Then you got to go into the settings and click on the team member section. And we do have team members. It's $35. Well, $35 is the max. That gives you your team member mobile access and web-based access. Now, if your team member is not going to ever hit the road and they don't need the mobile access, it's just $20 for web-based access.
There you go. Okay. How often is data updated? I find, okay, so we've talked about that. Oh, talk about skip tracing. Is skip tracing within PropStream or extra fee on every property? Talk about.
Yes, so skip tracing is an extra fee. It's 12 cents per address if that address gets results. If the address doesn't get any results, we won't skip trace it for you, or we won't charge you the 12 cents.
You still there, Burton?
Yes, I am.
Elena, I'm not sure why I can't mute her.
I think it keeps going off on unmute. There you go. It keeps coming off on mute. It might be hitting like, might be cheek tapping.
There we go. How about this? Bye.
I think the next question is, how accurate is the equity and rent estimated number? So with the equity, we talked about this at the very beginning. It can never be 100% accurate. This is why we label it estimated equity. The reason it can never be accurate is our equity is generated by this. I can show you how our equity is generated. So when I'm looking at a property, in this case, a single family residential property, we have this this data set that we buy is called an AVM, and everybody, it's a really strong model. It comes with a very strong data provider. I can't mention their name, but an AVM is an excess value model, right? So you have these huge data providers that have been around for centuries that have algorithms. And so anytime a property sells and it's been recorded, or it sells on the MLS and it's been recorded, what they do is they take the similar property characteristics and they run this algorithm on the back end, and it shoots out this estimated value, right? It's more designed for like the institutional companies, right? Because when you're like, calling 50 people at a time, you got to try to make an offer based on a quick value. I personally don't like it, but I'm just kind of explaining where this comes from. So you have these huge companies that are gathering data and spitting out what they believe is an assessed valued model, right? I don't like it for two reasons. One, this model only gets stronger based on transactions, right? So if you're in a market where there's not too many transactions happening at all, that model is going to be very off. Second reason I don't like it is you can never justify it. If I were to call Sarah and Manuel and say, Sarah, Manuel, I believe your house is worth $433,000, they're going to say, show me how you know that, or show me the proof. I can't like that. I'm straight up lying at that point, right? So this is why I always emphasize in our trainings, you have to run comps. Right? You have to find similar properties. And once you find them, you can check them off and then print a report out. I talked about this in that outline, because that report educates the homeowner. Says, hey, Manuel, Sarah, this is your house, 4 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. Here's what I found. Here's where your comps are at, right? And here's the value I came up with based on that. And now I can justify that 430 value because, I saw a house that sold for 450 and one that sold for 410, right? We can now average that out. So AVM models are used by a lot of data aggregators. I just don't like them personally because of those two reasons. A, it can never be 100% accurate because it's always based on transaction and volume. And second, you can't justify it. But how do we calculate our equity? We take this AVM, which is already an estimate, and then we subtract it by what we believe is the estimated mortgage balance. So now you're taking an estimated number and you're subtracting it by another estimated number, which is going to give you an estimated equity. So this could be off, that could be off, then that could make that double off, right? So we talked about this earlier. So now that you know how AVM is created, mortgage balance, this can never be 100% accurate because we don't know if they've been making the 1,300 minimum payments or not. They could have been making no payments for the last 5 months, and that's why they're calling you. So when you're actually talking to the homeowner, this balance is actually plus $300,000 rather than $295, because $295 is the assumption that they've been paying every month. So how accurate could it be? It can never be 100% accurate. This is why we always tell you to run your comps, ask the owner for the last statement balance, and then once you have your comps average last statement balance from the owner directly, then you can calculate your potential equity. And so really, this is just a snapshot. We believe if everything is following along accordingly and all the ducks are in line, then they're potentially hovering at 137 plus or minus equity. And that's hopefully the best answer I can give you. And that's a good question, by the way.
Very, very cool. Got to scroll back to the top. Make sure we go in order. So, did you talk about skip tracing and extra fees?
Yes.
You did? Okay.
Yeah, it was 12 cents per
nice.
per address, no minimum or maximum, and we won't charge you 12 cents if you don't get any results on that address.
Right. Okay, talk about equity. How can you extract agent lists from PropStream?
Agent, once you save a list, let's say I go to Madeira and I save these 169 MLS properties, right? So let me just call it the MLS list. Once you save a list that's been listed on the market or has been listed, let's say a failed listing or sold listing, you first have to save the list. So again, during the trial period, you'll have 50. If you're a subscriber, you'll have 10,000. But once you save the list, go to My Properties, which is like your filing cabinet, locate your list. But before you check it off and hit the export button, head over to the far right over here. You'll see a gearbox. This will allow you to customize your layout.
Right.
So in the gearbox, the thing that you want to do is look for MLS and then check off the agent name, phone number, and email, maybe the brokerage name and phone number. So maybe check them all off just to play it safe. Go ahead and then hit apply. What I would do before exporting is just scroll all the way to the far right. Just make sure that you see those columns. And I do. I see the agent name, agent phone, email, brokerage.
There you go.
Once we have all that, check them off, hit the export button. So yes, you can do it. Just got to make sure you hit this little gearbox right here. And then go to MLS and check off. Actually, you could check off what you want here. Like if I wanted like the loan, let's say I did an adjustable rate mortgage search, I probably want the loan information on that export, right? So this is an area where you can customize your header. If you do it accordingly, you'll now get your Excel sheet like I have here. And if you scroll, you'll now have all the agent's information as we see here. Okay.
Very cool.
So, great question. Really good question there.
All right. Let's see, where are we going next? Do commercial data sets include asset type like storage, mobile home parks, mom and pop motels?
Yes, but the only reality there, the only challenge is the labeling. So we do have it. So if you go into like our area, our search filter, go under property characteristics and under classification, here's the trick. If I choose residential, then when I go to property types, I'll have all residential options, right? So apartment houses, mobile homes. If I choose commercial, then I will also have commercial options, right? So let me remove on market here. So commercial, and then I will have, appliance, auto repair, yada, 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 yada. So you can check them off. The reason I was hesitant about answering that is because your county isn't always organized. Let me give you an example here. This is my neighborhood. And I want to just take a quick look at this. What do we see here? We see public storage, right? So you would think that this county would label this building public storage or like a mini storage facility, right? That's not the case. When I click on this parcel, even though it's public storage, a big known company, when I go into the details, it's actually labeled industrial. So if I went into Irvine, California, and I said, hey, look for public storages, I would get no results. Yeah, because it's not labeled. So what I tell people is before you go into like commercial searching, what is it that you're looking for first, right? So if I'm commercial searching and I'm like, well, I want to look for a gas station, then what I would recommend you do is find a gas station first and then click on that gas station, see what it's identified as, and then proceed from there. So I'm trying to see if I can find a gas station here. So I believe there should be one around here. Right, this is Big Parkway, and Commerce Center Drive. There we go. So I'm just trying to find okay, so here, so we would find a shell. There's one right there. So I'd click on it. And unfortunately, this is a big area. And so that would be just filed under commercial general. So how can I find gas stations? I won't be able to in Lake Forest, California. Gas stations now have to be found manually by zooming in and clicking, zooming in and clicking. So there are going to be times it's going to be easy, and there are going to be times it's not labeled properly. And if that's the case, then you got to do some zooming and clicking to get owner information on those commercial buildings. So that's just the challenges that we face as data aggregators, that data the way that recording works, and this is something I wish it was never the case, they don't go backwards. They always work forwards, right? So if like the federal government says, okay, guys, from this day forward, you have to now start recording year built on every property, right? They're not going to go backwards. They'll start at that point going forward, right? So that's the hardship about of data, is just that it's not always organized and records don't always kept up to date from the actual source. So that's a great question, and hopefully that can help at least guide you to clicking and identifying what the label is and then search by that label.
So I've actually never used this feature in PropStream, but apparently you can draw. A little feedback from someone saying it's a little more complicated than they would like.
It is. I will say it's more complicated than probably most would like. And the reason for it is because in the past we used to have actual shapes. We used to give people circles and a square or a rectangle. But then obviously we then had the other crowd were like, no. Properties or locations aren't always that perfect. So what I recommend, if you are going to use our draw search feature, go from satellite to map view first. It's just easier to look at. Second, the way that the draw search feature works is it's through several left clicks. So you're actually making your own area. So for example, let's say this little area right here between Marguerite, Los Alisos is the area I want, right? Because, they're starting to renovate there, whatever the reason is. If we had the circle, we had the rectangle, you couldn't do that. And so that's why we created this draw search feature. So for the first time ever, through several left clicks, I can create my own shaded area. And this is why we did it. It is complicated, it is complex, and it's because it's supposed to be. It's designed for those individuals who are doing what you're seeing.
That is not a normal shape you're drawing.
Exactly. And that's why we give you over 100 clicks for that very reason. And so another example here would be like, for example, Disneyland. Disneyland opened up about a year and a half ago. And what I saw personally happen was everybody was looking for Airbnb in this little area here. Although Disneyland is in Anaheim, if you search Anaheim, what ends up happening is you get all of Anaheim results. And that wasn't the case. So what a lot of people were doing is they were using our search filter, the smart investors in Southern California, and they were searching this corridor right here. What they were doing is, and I have a buddy that does this. He has an Airbnb right off Lambton and Chapman. So like right around here, in between Lambton and Chapman. And I kid you not, Airbnb, every room is Marvel themed. So you have like the Hulk room, you have the Captain America room, you have the Iron Man room. Nice. 5-star Airbnb rating. Parents have actually wrote reviews that the kids had more fun in the house than part of the park, right? So this is an example of doing that. If we didn't have the ability to draw your own shape, I wouldn't have been able to identify all the records within the shaded area. And then once I do identify those records, then I can use that filtering system to look for the adjustable rate mortgages or the vacant properties in this area or senior owners with high equities or whatever that category.
So it works. It really takes practice is what I hear you say.
It does. And again, it was deliberately designed to be that complicated because at first it wasn't so complicated and we were getting flack for not considering, the complicated searches that are out there. And so we said, you know what, why don't we just let them draw it, right? Sure. If you know how to draw a square, draw a square. If you want a circle, try to draw a circle, have fun, go from there.
Yeah. So it looks like full-time job for wholesalers. Let's be clear. There are a majority of wholesalers across the country that this is their platform, right? This is their vehicle. This is their farm list. This is their thing. That's what PropStream does. It can be used for lots of others, but yeah, I mean, you guys.
I think you know that. I won't lie. I mean, we're at the forefront of virtual wholesaling, virtual real estate. I know wholesalers that are pulling lists out of their county and they're pulling lists nationwide and then, using the same filters in their market, but just on a nationwide level. And again, that's the amazing part about this platform is it allows you to go out of your area. Like I'm in Orange County, California. And for the longest, I'm like, I'm never going to be able to find a great deal out here. And I don't. I can search Riverside. I can search Phoenix, Arizona. I can search Las Vegas. Maybe not Las Vegas because of the water issues right now, but you know what I mean? Like I can get out of my market. And that's, again, I'm very proud of. We're kind of paving that that way of virtual real estate. So,
Yeah,
which
but
is
there-
already happening. So if you're thinking about it, it's already happening.
Mhm.
Definitely want to look into it if you guys are interested in doing that.
Yeah, I mean, I have I know Jason Pritchard, who I have on Sundays, uses PropStream. Anybody on my team that's been on the channel uses it. Omar uses it. Omar's Tuesdays. So again, yeah, people are using this platform to make a lot of money. And basically, they're just again, kind of the opening. They're asking intelligent questions and seeing how many folks kind of set that up. Burton calls them situations.
Exactly. And that's what and so many things are happening today. Interest rates, inflations. I mean, oh man, that to me, that's why I love data. You can manipulate it in certain ways to potentially find someone who's about to go through a situation that they might not even know, right? And that's where you potentially can come in.
So Larry asked the question: Can you search MLS cancellations by county and set up daily alerts?
Yes, you may. So I think you're referring to failed listings. We do. So you can search
like
first and foremost by
or whatever.
Correct. So you can search by county. That's the biggest search you can perform. You'll want to go to our filter and go to failed listings. Now, here are just some best practices if you're going to be looking for failed listings. Go to our MLS status right after you do that. And two things. You could separate whether you're looking for a for sale failed listing or a for rent failed listing or both. That's what I would recommend. Decide which one you want, maybe both. Other best practices are days on market too, right? Because sometimes a property could fail because someone changed their mind. Hey, I listed it and you know what? I changed my mind. It's my grandma's house. I love her. I don't want to lose these memories. So take it off market. So what I would recommend is maybe apply a minimum. Like I'm looking for a failed listing, either rent or for sale, lasted on the market maybe 45 days or more, right? That way we know it went through that actual process a little bit and then it didn't actually sell. And boom. Oh, and another thing I would add just one more thing. Make sure you at least put 1 year of ownership because sometimes a property could fail on a market and then Michael buys it privately in cash, right? So it's a failed listing, but it's actually now owned under somebody else. So I always encourage when you're looking for failed listings, make sure that there's 1 year ownership or more. Because what that's saying is I'm looking for a failed listing that's still owned by somebody over a year or more, right? I don't want a failed listing that's now owned for a month because that lets me know someone just bought it a month ago, right?
Makes
So
sense.
failed listings, use the days on market and listing type as well as ownership info, and then apply your equity, property characteristics, et cetera, et cetera. So
very cool. All right. Let's keep it going. Let's see. Michael, got any ideas what filters lending, finding props with ADU potential split existing homes attached to size? So again, I think I would reach out and want the ADU guy to chime in on that. I think it would be minimum lot size seems to be the answer. I think when we were talking to him, it was 6,500. So I would do lot sizes. But again, I would definitely do it by your area. Maybe some of you are 8,000 square foot, some are 10. I think he talked about 6,500, I think. So that's probably where I would look. And lot size is one of the choices, obviously, Burton.
yes, correct. Yeah, that's actually just to the right of your building size. And I've seen that strategy. I thought it was very clever, but yeah, definitely here. Property characteristics, you'll have the lot size option, building size. So small building on a big lot, that could potentially be a good search right there. So
okay. All right, let's go back up. Does PropStream have a way of estimating potential rental values?
It does, and I think the question right below it's kind of like
how accurate?
A two-part, how accurate. So again, rent data can never be accurate 100%. It's just kind of an estimated value. But if you're wondering, where do you guys get your rent data from? It's from our MLS data set. So hence that filter I showed you guys. Like if I wanted to go to LA and look at all the on market or failed for rent, we can. So again, our aggregators, our data aggregators, just take the data that you're seeing here and run it. So can you run estimated values? Technically you can. Like if I wanted to go to, let me use a city. Okay, let's use Lake Forest since we're right here. So I wanted to go to Lake Forest, show me the rent. I can see rent in Lake Forest. So I can kind of take that avenue. I can also click on any of these properties here. And if I were to run comps on them, we will sometimes show you rent in the comp. So normally found in the MLS section, but the rent would be all these smaller value properties. So if you're like looking at comps and you're like, why does this say 4,800? No property in Orange County would have sold for 4,800. You're right. They would have never sold for 4,800. What those are rent. So what I would do is add your filters. Like this is a 4-bedroom, 3-bathroom property, yada, yada, yada. Get your results and then click on amount. So that way the rents are up high first. And then now you can do a side-by-side comparison here, right? So for 1,700. So I would say, number 1 is pretty good, number 13 and number 15, because these other 2 are pretty big, 2,100, 2,000, like we're already past, right? So based on these 3, 1,900, 1,700, 1,900, the average rent would be about 4,200. But again, we can't really say that that's for sure because we don't know the condition of the property. Right. Your property could be in grandma's condition where, you can live in it now, but it's not that HGTV, Tarek and Christina flip and flop property type. Right. So, which this is their market. They would be doing that stuff here. But, that will dictate whether, okay, $3,200 a month or $4,200 a month, or maybe $4,500 a month. Yeah, so we only provide data in terms of accuracy. It's the research that you apply and the results that you're selecting from.
Very, very cool. So I guess the last comment comes from Cashflow Johnny. He says he's had PropStream for over a year and he loves it. So kudos.
Awesome.
I appreciate it.
I was just looking at that quick comp I did and it got really close. The monthly rent was like $43.20.
Nice. Look at you.
Pretty, not too bad. I gotta practice on that a little bit more, but I guess our algorithms are using kind of the same approach that I just did right there. So getting really close to that.
So it looks like we got through all the questions. Burton, you and I will just kind of wrap this up, see if we get any last minute comments. But again, kind of as I started this, right? PropStream is providing crazy amount of value, right? If people were in the real estate game and in the 90s and 2000 with Bruce Norris was out doing his things, he would spend tens of thousands of dollars a month trying to aggregate data and have to throw it all away every 6 months because he had to do it again. PropStream is that data lake. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. It's relying on data collected from counties around the country. And if you've ever worked with a county, let's just say they're not all the same. It gives you the ability to ask intelligent questions. Again, PropStream to me is a data lake. We all know there are opportunities in there, but it's based on your questions. It absolutely could be a full-time job. You can get lost in this data if you keep going. I propose that you theorize and ask questions. I've brought this to my channel 6 months ago, 4 months ago, high equity, duplexes through quads, because I want to find potentially sellers that could accept owner carry. That's how you use the system. You get focused. You don't look at the lake, look where all the fish are, and then get questions. You have to theorize situations up front and then go find. Do not assume anything is 100% accurate. It's data. It's only as good as the data was. You're calling up a seller and you think they have a first lien and you talk to them, they have 2. Well, you've just learned something. So don't assume it's the gospel, but it is so much better than what was out there before. Burton, you want to bring us home and wrap us up? I'll see if there's any more questions.
Yes, please. Again, at the end of the day, guys, I just want to thank you guys for doing what you're doing, being at the forefront, solving these homeowners' problems, preventing that child from having to relocate and make new friends, right? I mean, that's what you guys are doing. So I just want to personally thank you for that. Michael preluded to it. There's no dumb question. I mean, you guys just ask us in regard to PropStream and we'll support you as best as we can. I do hope you guys implement what we taught you today. Remember, you do get a 7-day trial period. Make sure to click on Michael's link. You'll get that awesome discount. But if you need to get a hold of me, just find me on social media or call our customer support line. But other than that, I hope to come back and show you guys maybe our mobile app or list automator or any other cool features you guys want to hear. Just let Michael know and we'll schedule something for you guys.
Hey, Burton, it's not lost on me that this is your day job, which is usually Monday through Friday. You gave us over an hour of your time on a Saturday. So from all of the One Rental at a Time fans and the folks that will be watching this on YouTube, thank you for giving us over an hour of your Saturday. We appreciate you. Have a wonderful weekend, everybody. Take care of yourself. Thank you so much. Bye.